sweet dream. Now I'm struggling in my sleep. You left a hole in my heart, took the sunshine from my day. Can't you hear my soulful cry? Love, come back, don't you stay away. Come back to the Delta, where the sassy sax does play. Hear the piano sweet tune, in the shadows where we lay. The nights are oh so lonely, without you by my side. The blues are all around me, so hard to push aside. I'm singing to the moonlight, crying for your sweet return. The river's got my heart now, in the Delta, my soul does yearn. Come back to the Delta, where the sassy sax does play. Hear the piano sweet tune, in the shadows where we lay. The nights are oh so lonely, without you by my side. The blues are all around me, so hard to push aside. I'm singing to the moonlight, crying for your sweet return. The river's got my heart now, in the Delta, my soul does yearn. Come back to the Delta, where the sassy sax does play. Hear the piano sweet tune, in the shadows where we lay.
Found a love so true, so fine, in the mess halls where we dine. He's a soldier, I'm a whack. Letters from the front keep coming back. Army life ain't always grand. Miss his touch and miss his hand. But when the band starts to play, dancing dreams wash blues away. Swinging to the beat each night, in the moon's soft glow so bright. Sipping drinks beneath the stars, war can't keep us from our hearts. Writing letters late at night, thinking about him in the fight. Hoping soon we'll reunite. Till then I'll keep my love in sight. Combat boots, hidden loves and tender roots. We'll keep dancing through the pain, in this boogie-woogie train. Swinging to the beat each night, in the moon's soft glow so bright. Sipping drinks beneath the stars, war can't keep us from our hearts. Found a love so true, so fine, in the mess halls where we dine. He's a soldier, I'm a whack. Letters from the front keep coming back. in my shoes. Chicago's calling my name. Gonna find my fortune and fame. River boats and southern nights, dreaming of those city lights. Miss those nights with you and me, but my heart's in Chicago streets. Chicago, it blows free, filling my heart with glee. Dancing in the city glow, missing you, but I can't say no. Met you down in the bayou, sweetest love I've ever known. Left my heart there in the swamp, now I'm wandering all alone. Every night I sing a song in the city where I belong, hoping you'll come find me here in Chicago, where dreams appear. Chicago wind blows free, filling my heart with glee. Dancing in the city glow, missing you, but I can't say no.
Down by the old chicken shack, where the blues cracks meet the back, whiskey nips and sipping black, feathers flying, can't go back. Keep moving on that dusty floor, hear the sax just like before. Chicken pieces so galore, till the nights give me more. Oh, the chicken shack boogie, dancing wild with old blue. Midnight spirits make me loopy, ain't no blues like this truly. Boogie woogie makes me sway, got them on, can't stay away. Chicken pieces call my play, whiskey kisses make my day. Sax and piano blending high, black top shoes, we're all in flight. Delta breezes, moves in sight, getting loose, it feels so right. Oh, the chicken shack boogie, dancing wild with old boogie. Midnight spirits make me loopy, ain't no blues like this truly. Boogie woogie makes me sway, like them on, can't stay away. Chicken pieces call my play, whiskey kisses make my day. Boogie woogie makes me sway, like them on, can't stay away. Chicken pieces all my play, ain't no blues like this truly. Boogie woogie makes me sway, like them on, can't stay away. Chicken pieces all my play, whiskey kisses make my day.
Chicago nights can call to me, lights and music setting me free, leaving Delta blues behind. In the city love I'll find, whose river flows my heart it aches, tunes of old my soul it takes. But this city shines so bright, hoping love will make it right. Chicago, oh Chicago, you know where my heart goes. Find my love in your glow, Chicago, oh I'll follow. That a man with dreams so grand held my heart, took my hand. Sweetest words whispered low, in this city love will grow. Still I miss those Delta skies, creeks and rivers, moonlit eyes. But in Chicago I must stay, for love has found its way. Chicago, oh Chicago, you know where my heart goes. Find my love in your glow, Chicago, oh I'll follow. Chicago, oh I'll follow.
This
Met a man with dreams so grand, held my heart, took my hand. Sweetest words whispered low, in this city love will grow. Still I miss those Delta skies, creeks and rivers, moonlit eyes. But in Chicago I must stay, for love has found its way. Chicago, oh Chicago, you know where my heart goes. Find my love in your glow, Chicago, oh I'll follow.
I really must say,
The Russia probe's back today.
these women told their truth.
You hear Obama had no proof.
They say you were on the plane.
Cashless bail's truly insane.
You drew a pube signature.
Mark Levin's book, great literature.
You wrote about an enigma.
Democrats in jumpsuits, brah.
A lot of the women insist
The Redskins are not racist.
the prison tape missed a minute.
My Indonesia deal win it.
The Wall Street Journal ran what you drew.
I'm suing them, Murdoch too.
You treated girls so foul.
Besson said,
Don't fire, pal. Victims are naming you directly now. Mr. Trump, this can't be ignored.
well, maybe they should investigate Adam Schiff's taxes. I'm bored.
Your victims feel erased. You see my tweets. Obama's a disgrace.
That drawing was untoward.
I've never doodled on my word.
You wrote a mini play.
It was metaphorical poetry.
The girls were just in their teens.
Let's talk Hunter's laptop screen.
Mr. Trump, are you in the Epstein file?
How about my prisons of crocodiles?
You gotta set the truth free.
Sure, but now let's lock up Hillary.
So let's just talk about any dang thing.
As long as I'm not in trouble for my ding-a-ling.
And your base will keep getting distracted.
Don't you see, nobody cares how I acted.
It's kind of crazy how long this is going on.
That's why they call me the Teflon Don.
That's why they call me the Teflon Don.
Really hate that sad loser, Mr. Newberger.
Who, me?
I love Mr. Newberger's AI funnies. If you've never been to that station, make sure you go. Welcome to ViperTV Live. How you doing out there in Radio Land? Well, shortly before I came onto the show today, I got some news that my Uncle Larry down in Florida has passed away. And kind of sucks because of the new regime's limitations on who they see as fit and not fit to enter the country. There's no chance I'll be able to go to the funeral. However, Uncle Larry was an interesting individual. He taught me to pour a beer. And what I mean by that is he had a tap in his house. And I learned you hold the glass sideways when you pour the beer. So it slowly goes that way. And then you tilt it so that there's no foam. Because it was my job as a youth to go and refill everyone's beer at the tap. I had an extremely unorthodox childhood, safe to say. See here, what else? Uncle Larry had an airboat. And Uncle Larry is the one who gave me my initial fear of gators, I'm pretty sure, because he took us out on the airboat, and I was in shorts. I didn't know that you probably shouldn't wear shorts when you're on an airboat, but I insisted because it was hot. And we went flying through the sawgrass, and that shit cut my legs up like you wouldn't even believe, man. And everybody thought it was hilarious because they were like, oh, we told you not to wear shorts. And I learned something that day. But he gave me my initial fear of gators because we were out there. We were just out in the middle of the fucking swamp in an airboat, and he handed me, it was me, him, my father, and he handed me a .357 Magnum, and I'm about maybe 13 at the time, and he says, one jumps up on the boat, you got a quarter spot about that big on top of their head, and you know what to do with it. So those are, oh yeah, and he had some Gene Tracy truck stop 8 tracks with just like the most foul humor on it. And yeah, rest in peace, Uncle Larry. You were you were an interesting individual, and you impacted my life in small but meaningful ways. Here's to you, sir. So, how's everybody doing out there today? Everybody have a good weekend? I got some gaming done. We're deep into our Red Dead adventure. You're gonna have to come hang out in the Discord if you want to get down on some of that, because there's going to be some new games coming too in the future. Yeah, I was not expecting to find out that Uncle Larry passed right before I went on, but you know, unfortunately, it's the circle of life, as they say, right? First, Ozzy and Malcolm Jamal Warner and Terry Bollea, because in my opinion, Hulk Hogan didn't die. Terry Bollea died. Hulk Hogan will live forever. Getting right into the insanity of what's going on with our modern political system today. Well, it seems that we're going to start working with Pravda. What is Pravda? Pravda is what the word is for the Russian media, which means no matter what it is that we tell you, you're going to believe it. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. And when you can no longer rely on the truth, that's when countries start to devolve, if you will. And once more, MSNBC, not my place for based commentary, but when they're right, they're right.
We just, of course, played sound from President Trump criticizing the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but previously, he'd praised data from that bureau repeatedly. Back in March, Trump heralded job numbers for the month of February. BLS reported 151,000 jobs added, only slightly below expectations.
Oh, there it is. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. These are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised.
In April, Trump applauded the BLS data again when the outcome for March was better than economists expected. He did the same in May when April's numbers also exceeded expectations. And just last month, the president praised the great job numbers that came out for May. But it's a very different tune this time with these job numbers being so disappointing. And President Trump is not quitting on his criticism. Just moments ago, 2 minutes ago, he took to Truth Social to write this. Last week's jobs report was rigged, all caps, just like the numbers prior to the presidential election were rigged. I'll interject this note. That's not true. We cleared that up earlier in the show. He goes on to claim there was mass.
Now, I hate to say it, but in my opinion, you're not going to be able to use the shadow of Roy Cohn at all times to be able to run the presidency. Because just something, if it's true and you don't like it, it doesn't mean you can't just make it go away, especially when these are numbers that the entire world depends on for making financial decisions. The United States has been a beacon of that kind of information because it was always nonpartisan. Numbers are just fucking numbers. But when you got a whiny titty baby who can't handle any kind of criticism and instantly has to make it everybody else's fault, well, this is where we're at now.
Of quote, record-setting revisions, all in favor of the radical left Democrats. He says he will pick an exceptional replacement, one who won't be a concocting numbers, in his words, to hurt Republicans. He adds, of course.
No, they're going to be concocting numbers to ensure that Trump is happy, which means they're going to be lying. Because what do you think is going to be the job qualification? Like the thing that actually gets you the job. It's not going to be your technical expertise as a subject matter expert. It's, are you going to lie for Trump to make him look good? And when this is the kind of information that we're starting to depend on, this is a quick slide to authoritarianism. Sorry. I'm so pissed off by this news that I'm stuttering when I'm talking.
Thank you for your attention to this matter. Mara, I mean, this is, to Peter's point, it's dangerous stuff. President not backing off of it. When the numbers are good, he praises it. When they're bad, he gets angry and he fires the person in charge. And there are echoes here of other countries that lost their credibility, that lost parts of their democracy because numbers were changed to fit the whims of their leader.
Right. I mean, this is another example of American exceptionalism out the window. This would have been unthinkable a decade ago, before Donald Trump came on the scene. This happened in Greece. This happened in Argentina. It's happened elsewhere. And, you know, what American...
Do you remember what happened to Greece and Argentina's economy? Pepperidge Farm remembers what happened to their economy. It went into the fucking trash can.
Can expect, apparently, under this president, is to see the United States lose its sense of confidence in facts, in also just excellence. And the idea with public service is that no matter who is in charge of the government, a Democrat or a Republican, that you can trust the numbers, that we're all dealing with the same set of facts. And I think, first of all, this is also a sign of weakness politically, because Americans understand that the economy is filled with uncertainty right now. If you are out there looking for a job, you know it's harder than it was a year ago.
It's almost like he knows that he can just literally lie to his base and they'll take it. I think that's why he keeps saying that gas is $1.98 when we damn well know that gas is not $1.98. But I guess if you repeat the lie enough times and make it big enough, people can help but believe it. At least according to Goebbels, that was the idea. But you aren't going to be able to gaslight what people pay at the grocery store. The economy is all about vibes. And I hate to say it, that's another reason that Joe Biden had problems. He had an amazing economy number-wise, but the prices still sucked. And that's what they feel in their vibes when it comes to the economy. And same thing with this right now. Just, in fact, everything's more expensive than it was under Biden.
You know, Donald Trump, no matter who he fires, he can't fix that. Because the reality is the economy is showing signs of stress because of these tariffs and all kinds of other measures that he's taken. And he doesn't want to acknowledge that. But the political reality will catch up with him. And again, just to the example of Greece and Argentina, those economies experienced grievous losses after the data was manipulated. There is nothing to prevent that from happening in the United States if Donald Trump continues on this trajectory. You fire one official. Fortunately, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is filled with excellent public servants, but this is a bad precedent to set. And you've got to think also that even on Wall Street, there's got to be a sense, at least behind the scenes, they may not be saying it publicly yet, of fear, because everybody relies on these statistics.
And speaking of Wall Street, we've got exactly the right person to bring into this conversation.
Whatever. But yeah, you can't fake the numbers and actually expect to get proper data.
CNBC Squawk Box and
hush it. And when you don't have proper numbers, especially when it comes to economic reporting, you cannot, and I repeat, cannot make predictive investments. It's the same with these tariffs. How are you supposed to invest in the United States economy when at any given moment, the mad emperor can change it from 30% tariffs to 105 or 145 even? Fuck. I'm telling you. People were running on the banks in Greece, and people went to get money at the ATMs, and they were fresh out. Yeah, I mean, it completely makes sense. Maybe you should start burying your cash in a mayonnaise jar in your backyard like your grandma used to back in the day when she didn't trust banks. Or at least maybe that was just my insane Southern grandma. Oh, man. So the whole rewriting of history is something that really is bothering the ever-living shit out of me, like you wouldn't even believe, especially when it's the right wing trying to convince people that they're not bad people because they don't want to be the baddies, and that they have to convince people that they're not failures because they don't want to be failures. But the truth is, they're bad people, fascists, and they are failures when it comes to any sort of quote unquote policy. And the thing is because they're such failures, they have to gaslight about who it is that they are. What do I mean by that? Well, take a look at this clip right here. This clip is fantastic, and it's called "No, the Nazis Were Not Left Wing." And we're gonna clear this shit up once and for all, because I'm tired of people trying to rewrite history.
History Channel. I usually focus on historical events, not modern politics, and that's a choice. But today, I'm going to make an exception to that choice, because the more content I make on the Second World War, the more I get people in the comments saying things like, Nazis were National Socialist. Let's not forget their far left political element. Or, in another flavour, socialists are leftists, including Nazis. And I think this is wrong, not just politically wrong, but historically wrong. Now, of course, it doesn't help that terms like left and right are abstractions of quite complex political beliefs, but it is the best we have, and even so, Nazi Germany fits quite comfortably on the right side of this divide. So,
hear that? On the right side of the divide. Why does it fit on the right side of the divide? Well, watch and learn, because they're going to keep trying to gaslight you. And you need to make sure that you have all of this information in your back pocket ready to go. Because we are in a war of information. They're trying to rewrite history, and sometimes they're using AI to do it.
today I'm going to try and prove that to anyone who's on the fence. I will leave aside my personal feeling that it's a sad reflection of our times that this has become a matter of debate, but there you are. That said, let's begin. So, the most common arguments I've seen are ones that go like this one. Commies always say Nazis was the right wing, when the term is short for National Socialism. And this is actually true. National Socialism is where we get the term Nazi. And fun fact, when Hitler was doing his tour of Germany to rustle up popular support, he would actually subtly change the title depending on his audience. If, say, he was addressing a trade union in Berlin, he would capitalize the S in socialism, emphasizing his solidarity with workers. But then the next day in Munich, when addressing conservatives, he'd make the S lowercase and capitalize.
That kind of permanent and I would say intentional deception was something that the Nazis were truly known for regularly. Like, for example, one of the train stations that led to the concentration camp, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but it literally had a wooden clock on the wall with hands painted on it. The idea of deception is something that fascists always use because they know that there's people who will back them up no matter what it is that they do. And they'll encourage it even. But, you know, when confronted about it, no, that's not me. I'd never do that. I have a black friend. Okay.
The N in nationalism. He knew how to be a man for all sides. But in any case, the point does stand. It's literally in the name, National Socialist. Therefore, the Nazis were left-wing. Now, I don't want to spend too long on this argument because I think we can all see the problem with it. Things aren't always what they call themselves, which is why North Korea, despite being the most repressive nation on earth, still officially calls itself the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It's false advertisement and, taken too literally, it'll get ya. Dry clothing works by getting your clothes wet, just with chemicals instead of water. French fries come from Belgium, not France. You get the idea. But by that same virtue, some things are exactly...
Hulk Hogan was awesome. Terry Bollea was a dickhead. Walter White is a dickhead. Bryan Cranston is awesome. I hope this clears this idea up.
What they're called. The United States of America is a series of states united in America. So just saying the Nazis weren't socialist doesn't actually make that true. I'm going to have to prove it to you, and in order to do that, we need to look at politics in the early 20th century. So, before the outbreak of the First World War, there was one ideological game in town: imperialist capitalism. Free markets, traditional values, expansion of territory, colonial ambitions, private property, all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying capitalism is always imperialist, but at this specific time, it usually was. But then, in 1917, just before the end of the First World War...
I love how it showed the Billy Club, because we really know that the job of the police is to protect the property of the rich. It's not to prevent crime. It's to react to crime. Like, I don't know who else is going to show up with a notepad and take all the all the information that you give them, only for them to not follow up and possibly even find you guilty of some sort of crime while they're at your residence.
A brand new ideology emerged from the shadows and took over an entire country. Russia went from the old world of imperial capitalism to a shiny new future under this novel political movement: communism. Communists saw the defining features of capitalism as fundamental injustices, and instead offered a new way: a classless society where property was collectively owned and distributed among the workers, where the church was stripped of its power and influence, and where the only war left to fight was between the workers who were oppressed and the capitalists who did the oppressing. This sudden bifurcation of political philosophy in 20th century Europe created a bit of a hoo-ha, both between, but especially within, nations. Nowhere was this more prevalent than in Germany, which had just been destroyed after the chaos of the First World War. Internationally humiliated and desperate at home, Germans started to squabble about which direction the country should take, the new left or the old right. This squabbling then led to a series of street fights between communists, desperate to bring Germany into the shiny new communist utopia, and the conservative factions, determined to keep communism at bay, restore Germany's national pride, and return to the politics of the old world. One of these right-wing anti-communist factions, which was particularly violent, was the Freikorps, and it's from this organisation that the Nazis would go on to fill their ranks, including major figures such as Ernst Röhm, Rudolf Hess, Reinhard Heydrich, Karl Ernst, and Martin Bormann. The ranks of the Nazi Party were firmly and comfortably drawn from the right of the political spectrum, not the left. But that's not the point
You hear that? Drawn from the right of the political spectrum. If you need to rewind it, if you need to make a short clip of it, go ahead. But those are the facts.
actually want to make. Not yet, at least. What I'm really trying to say is that by the 1920s there were two ideological games in town. Old world capitalism and new world communism. And as I said, this two-sided struggle created a lot of hoo-ha across Europe as countries agonized over which side to pick. The devil you know, or the devil you don't. And all that was until 1922, when a man named Benito Mussolini marched on Rome with a brand new offer. A third option. Not communism, but not exactly capitalism either.
The funny thing about the March on Rome was that it was a bluff. It was just a whole lot of people acting like thugs all the way across Italy. But once they got to Rome, it was all up to Benito Mussolini to convince the king not to declare martial law, because he said the fascists were there to protect the imperialist power. He used the phrase, "Men will not be free until the last king is strangled with the entrails of the last priest." And he said that to him. And that obviously scared the shit out of him. And he's like, "But don't worry. We black shirts will protect the imperialist ideas." Once more, fascism always uses deception.
Under Il Duce, you'd get the best of both worlds. A strong state that preserved national pride, but whilst also having a hand in the economic market that would make sure that the workers would be well fed and without all that hassle of abolishing private property. Everybody wins. Mussolini called it fascism, named after fasces from ancient Rome, which were used to symbolize political power. And for a while, the world was pretty smitten. International coverage was positive, and Il Duce's third way seemed to be going quite well for Italy, at least in the beginning. Hitler saw all this going down and started to model himself on Mussolini's speeches and rhetoric, adopting this third way.
Once more proving to us that the Fash CAN'T original. Seriously, look at everything that the modern fascist movements are doing. None of it is original, other than using the internet, but they just used the radio back in the day in newspapers. But every single bit, all the way down to stigmatizing minorities to make up for economic failures, the Fash CAN'T original.
In fact, when the two men actually met for the first time, Mussolini would even joke that Hitler made for a pretty uninspiring tribute act. In the end, of course, it would
Tribute act.
but history loves irony. In any case, with fascism, a new political movement was born in Europe, and over the decades it would pop up in Spain, Germany, Croatia, Hungary, and Romania.
Yeah, gang, they did
Some say it
snowstorm
hasn't
leaflets from the sky.
yet. Unfortunately, though, as we've mentioned, things don't always perform as advertised, and before long, this third way between the new and the old, the left and the right, just became a more extreme version of the old and the right. And this happened both in Italy, but most importantly, since we're judging the Nazis, it happened in Germany too. Instead of boldly planting a confident step into a brave new world, Hitler's first move was to go old school and allied himself with the church. On July 20th, 1933, Hitler signed the Reich's Concordant with the Roman Catholic Church. The deal was that if the church backed Hitler in the Reich, then they'd have special privileges in German society, most crucially in education. National Socialism.
Hey, does that sound familiar? I think it sounds familiar to me too. I think it sounds something like the Heritage Foundation. Yeah? Maybe we should see if they have any ties to any certain organizations going back far, far, far into history.
We're suddenly starting to look a bit more Christian nationalist. Meanwhile, on the left side of Europe, communist Russia was openly hostile to the church. Religious education was banned, churches were destroyed, and monks were imprisoned. The institution of religion was
Now, I don't believe in that. That's going just a little too far. That's why I'll never say I'm a communist. I'm nowhere near that. A leftist bordering on liberal. I think that gay married couples should be able to protect their pot plants with guns. That's personally my political stance. But as you can see, an extreme left or an extreme right, it never leads to anything good. Extremism in any political faction always ends up with the wrong people getting arrested or worse.
Completely uprooted from society. The right allied with the church, the left destroyed it. But that's not the full picture, of course, so let's get to the nitty-gritty that we all think things are defined by: economic policy. After all, the fascists were supposed to intervene in the economy in order to protect workers' rights. In reality, not so. Hitler did get his mittens in the market, but unlike the left, where capitalists were thrown out and industry was collectivized, under the Nazis, the capitalists and industrialists were allowed to stick around so long as they helped build the war machine. This is why Nazi Germany had a nasty collection of war profiteers who made themselves extremely rich from feeding the...
Take a look at the people who are profiting right now from all the different concentration camps that were opening, especially the people that were building Alligator Alcatraz. I'm telling you, just follow the money. Every time you start to see human rights abuses and scapegoating, just follow the money.
Insatiable beast. IG Farben, which made Zyklon B, and Krupp being prime examples. But whilst capitalists were able to accrue obscene wealth...
I also, I live in Germany, and I went to Völklingen, and it's a gigantic steel mill. And there was forced labor that was used there by the Nazis. And, you know, there was several deaths there, and there's a gigantic memorial in the middle of the steel mill where you just need to Google the Völklingen, I suppose Völklingen Workers Memorial, and maybe you'll be able to see the interactive display that they created. It'll send chills down your spine, man.
Under the Nazi regime, trade unions, a staple of the left-leaning workers' movement, were abolished. Literally.
Trade unions means you can't chain somebody to a piece of factory equipment and say, you're going to work on that or we're going to shoot you. And that's the reason why fascists hate trade unions, because it's their idea that they need to squeeze as much out of the working poor for themselves as much as possible. Like, notice fascists are also hardcore against like pornography and whatnot, but psh, go look at hashtag not a drag queen and tell me if it doesn't look like a fucking MAGA rally for reals.
Under Hitler, all trade unions were banned, leaders were whisked off to concentration camps, and a new organisation called the German Labour Front was established instead. But that was actually a puppet of the Nazi regime. The whole time, profits flowed handsomely, and the working class remained underpaid. Not very left-wing. Now, that's not to say that the working class got a taste of utopia in the Soviet Union either. That experiment turned out to be a horrific failure for the working class as well, just for very different reasons. Moving away from economics, though, you can also look at the behaviour of Nazi Germany on the international stage to get a flavour of their politics. Every time the Nazi Party took a stance on global affairs, they protected the right and aggressively hindered the left. You need only look at the Spanish Civil War, where Franco was able to steamroll the Spanish communists, but only with the help of German weapons, most famously at the Guernica, bombed by German planes. And if you're still in doubt, just ask the Fuhrer himself.
If you're not familiar with that painting, go ahead and take a look. Read about its history, and read about the events that led to it. And it really, really goes to show how one piece of art can tell a story in a way that a million words can't.
In Mein Kampf, he couldn't be clearer. The revolution of the proletariat, led by the Jews, is a mortal danger to the German nation and must be crushed with uncompromising force. So, yes, very anti-communist, even from the horse's mouth. But that quote actually brings us to the last point I want to talk about, which is that although both the communist regimes and fascist regimes had an awful track record of human rights, for the communists, the enemy was the capitalist, the bourgeoisie, the rich oppressor. But for the Nazis, the enemy wasn't economic, it was racial. Non-Aryans and Jews were the enemy. Similarly, communism...
And you can see when I did that, I think it was a few episodes back, when they interviewed that ridiculous-looking hate preacher in Tennessee. Notice when he took the mask off on his tweet, he said, when we say make America great again, we mean make America white again. But they'll still try to gaslight you about all this shit. That's why it's important to have all this information in your back pocket.
Saw itself as an international movement. Workers first. Nazism, by contrast, was a
America first.
Germany first. Communism, at least on paper, aimed for a flat hierarchical structure
the Fash CAN'T original.
On equality between all. Fascism was quite happy with hierarchies. It made sense to them, and they were happy to preserve them. Big differences between both sides. I could go on and on, but
hierarchies is one of those things also that Jordan Peterson would talk about a lot when it comes to talking about lobsters and whatnot. I remember before he lost his mind during COVID, he would just kind of tell you to clean your room in a racist kind of way. But those dog whistles were out there. Just we didn't know that that's what they were genuinely trying to do, but now we do.
I think you get the point. And I think the more interesting question for the moment is, why are people suddenly saying this, even though it's pretty obviously untrue? And I don't think it's just a case of historical disagreement here. In fact, I think the motivation to say that the Nazis were left-wing is political. Right now, there's a pretty fierce divide between right and left in our culture, and as a result, rightly or wrongly, the word fascist, or Nazi, is being thrown around a fair bit. And I think that this is an attempt by the right to distance themselves from the atrocities of the Nazi regime. You know,
there it is, exactly it. They don't want to admit that they're the baddies, even though they are. Because in the same way that this political dogma works. It's how regular dogma works with Christian nationalists too, because it's more important for them to maintain the appearance of being a good person than actually being a good person. That's why when you point out that their beliefs are pretty much that of the Nazis, instantly they're going to try to gaslight the shit out of you because they just don't want to be part of that, that shame that their ideology naturally holds.
The right don't do this thing. Don't forget, they were the socialists. This is what being left-wing gets you. We're the good guys, etc., etc. And not only is this wrong and intellectually dishonest, it's also ineffective. Even if I was to agree with you that the Nazis were left-wing after all, it's being too far left that makes you a Nazi, they're the bad guys. Even if I concluded that, you'd still have all of your work cut out for you to make the right clean. I mean, even if the Nazis were lefties, how do you explain the Japanese Empire with their atrocities in China, their racial dogma, their literal god king on the throne, and militaristic corporatism? Would you say that they were left-wing too? How would you account for Ante Pavelic in Croatia, who took power under the guise of Catholic?
I like this segment right here because he's asking questions that you would ask. And fascism falls apart under questioning because it's all about lies. And they can't keep track of their lies. They're going to obviously fail. Especially in a debate. Watch Mick Mulvaney debate Mehdi Hassan. And watch Mehdi bring the receipts. And watch Mulvaney just shrug it off. And just like, yeah, okay. When you're dealing with people that have no shame, it's just important to remember that statements don't work. You have to ask them questions. Questions you already know the answer to, because otherwise they're going to try to gaslight you.
Nationalism, and went on to commit crimes against humanity so depraved that it shocked even the SS. Was this also left-wing? Of course not. The Croatian Ustasha, Imperial Japan, and Nazi Germany were right-wing. And no matter how much you might hate that fact, it's still true. And that doesn't mean you should be left-wing, by the way. I'm not trying to make the case for the left or against the right. Extremes on any side can be dangerous. What I'm really trying to say is that you're not helping the right or owning the libs when you lie about history. Instead, you're hurting all of us by obscuring our knowledge of the past and making us more likely to repeat our worst mistakes. Mistakes which could, at the end of the day, affect you. Without honesty and a genuine respect for the truth, we'll never learn to share this planet with each other without more tragedy and bloodshed. In the meantime, guys, take care of each other and have a great summer. Bye.
And that's the thing, is that they know what they're doing. They know that they're being intellectually dishonest. But the thing, remember what he said? He's like, when people start to, they start to bury the deeds of the past just because they want to not seem like they support a flawed ideology. It's because they want to repeat it. I don't think that people understand that the reason that this is intentional is because the idea is they want to repeat it. Like I said, he took the mask off when he said they want to, quote unquote, make America white again. I mean, what more can you say? But don't worry, gang. Not all hope is lost, because there's always going to be resistance fighters out there. What do I mean by that? Well, let's get into it.
It is not heresy, and I will not recant.
Yeah! What do we got going on today? Well, gang, remember we was just talking about resistance? If you've never, ever, ever heard this story before, I think that you might just learn a little something today that you might like. It's a story about the woman who's a Dutch resistance fighter with her sisters, and they would seduce Nazis only to kill them. It's time for Twisted History.
Imagine, it's World War II. The Nazis are sweeping across Europe, and you're being trained as a covert assassin by a desperate resistance movement. And, oh yeah, you're only 14 years old. Today, we're going to take a look at the story of Freddie Overstehen, the woman who seduced Nazis to kill them. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History.
Yeah, give Weird History a love.
Please leave a comment and let us know what other war stories
They got all kinds of great stories.
We ain't in the prisoner taking business. We're in the killing Nazi business. Freddie Overstehen was born in the village of Scholte in the Netherlands on September 6, 1925. Her family was working class and had deeply held left-wing political ideals. Along with her older sister, Truus, Freddie grew up in an area north of Amsterdam where communists were forced to live, known as the Red Zone. By the 1930s, the girls and their mother, Kraantje, became part of an underground organization called the Red Aid, which helps Jews and refugees escape the burgeoning Nazi regime. The girl's father was also a political activist, but showed no sign of wanting to support his family financially or otherwise, so their parents divorced. Their mother continued to raise them alone while working in industrial factories. Freddie would later recall her parents' separation as being highly unusual for the time. The family was living on a large boat in Haarlem at the time. Freddie's father never made any money and didn't pay anything for the barge, so Freddie's mother just got fed up one day and left. According to Freddie, it wasn't an ugly divorce or anything, and her father actually sang a French farewell song from the bow of the ship on the day they left. She knew their father loved them, but she didn't see him very often after that. Resistance to fascism was in the Overstehen girls' blood from day one. Their youth was full of...
What bars? I hope one day when somebody talks about all of us, that those those words are used to describe us. It means we're onto something, right, gang?
Memories of hiding Jews and political fugitives in their home. As soon as the sisters' parents divorced, their mother, Kraantje, moved them from the boat they were living in with their father to a modest apartment with straw mattresses she made herself. Even though the apartment was barely large enough for the three of them, they began harboring fugitives. Freddie remembers living with a Jewish couple during the years of the war. The Overstehens were anti-fascists from the start, never succumbing to the fear tactics of the Germans as the war took hold of the Netherlands. In a 2016 interview with Vice, Freddie recalled, "I remember how people were taken from their homes. The Germans were banging on doors with the butts of their rifles. That made so much noise, you'd hear it in the entire neighborhood, and they would always yell. It was very frightening." When the war officially began, Freddie and Truus began handing out flyers and pamphlets with information on how to join the resistance. They rode their bikes and wore their hair in pigtails in an effort to throw anyone suspicious of them off their trail. They tried to look as innocent and young as possible as they vandalized the German posters that had made their way across Amsterdam. Freddie talked about this period of her life in interviews, saying that she and her sister glued warnings across German posters in the street calling men to work in Germany, and then we'd hurry off on our bikes. Since the Nazis were, Nazis, the punishment for distributing information or organizing against them in any way was pretty much a death sentence. That being the case, the Overstehen girls were showing more courage as young teenagers.
Fascism depends on lies. In the moment that you do anything to try to debunk fascist propaganda, you paint a target on your back, whether it's through cyber harassment or physical harassment, because it all depends on lies. It's why the first people they lock up are journalists. That's why they're fudging. Remember that word? They would use that when you would try to cheat in your homework. You're fudging the economic numbers.
natures than most people show in their whole lives.
Now we need to keep in mind the fact that she's 14. The fact that she's 14 and Nazi soldiers were all like, I want a piece of that. Some things never change with the fascists, do they? Epstein files. Excuse me, I have a horrible cough today.
In much the same way, a college football player's dedication and skill might bring them to the attention of the pros, the Overstehen family's fearless commitment to disseminating information against the Germans caught the attention of Franz van der Wiel, the commander of the Haarlem Council of Resistance. He personally visited their house to ask their mother permission to recruit Freddy and Truus to the resistance. Kleintje said yes without a second thought. Freddy and Truus were also eager to join up, and so, much like a young Luke Skywalker, the sisters joined the resistance. In a later interview, Freddy would recall the moment that van der Wiel told them what their duties would be. Despite the fact that they were at an age when most kids are still afraid to confront schoolyard bullies, the girls were expected to sabotage bridges and railway lines, and learn to shoot Nazis. Anyway, Freddy remembered her sister coolly replying, "Well, that's something I've never done before." Freddy and Truus were 2 of 7 girls recruited by the resistance. At first, they thought they'd be forming a secret army. It turns out, their responsibilities were a bit different. They received their training deep in the woods, where the commanders taught them some military techniques. In particular, how to shoot a gun. They also learned to march. When it came time for their first mission, Truus was told to flirt with a young German soldier and ask him to join her for a stroll in the same woods where the girls had trained. As a distraction, the resistance set up a seemingly coincidental run-in with an acquaintance, which was just another resistance soldier. Once the German soldier was distracted, the fatal shot was fired. The entire time this was happening, Freddy was acting as a lookout a few feet away. She described the fateful moment in an interview, saying, "That man never knew what hit him." This became the girl's preferred tactic for taking out German soldiers who had overtaken their city. While Freddy couldn't recall how many soldiers' lives she had taken during her time in the resistance, it had a profound effect on her and Truus.
Remember, ladies, you have a certain charm, and fascists are easily led, especially when it comes to their libido. And the fact that, it's just such a great story, because they know that the fascists can't resist the idea of an underage woman trying to seduce them. And then they get what for, because they follow their dastardly instincts. What a hero. Or heroine, rather.
The latter explained in a 2016 interview. It was tragic and very difficult, and we cried about it afterward. We did not feel it suited us. It never suits anybody unless they are real criminals. One loses everything. It poisons the beautiful things in life. As the war went on, the resistance quickly realized that Dutch citizens collaborating with Nazi Germany were a far bigger threat than German soldiers. In a BBC interview with Freddy's son, Clemy Dekker, he recalls a story his mother told him about a Dutch traitor who was planning on handing over a list with the names and locations of all the Jews in the Netherlands. Freddy approached the traitor on a bicycle in a park and asked what her name was. Once Freddy confirmed she had the right person, she shot her, point blank. While their attacks sometimes took place through luring men into the woods by flirting, as the war went on, the Overstehen sisters became incredibly good shots, taking out Dutch collaborators while racing by on a bicycle. Truus would often ride the bike, while Freddy sat on the back and took aim. On top of all the hits, the Overstehen sisters performed many other dangerous and complicated tasks, including smuggling Jewish children out of the Netherlands to safety. These teenage Oscar Schindlers completed many successful missions, saving an
The thing is, it'd be one thing if they just seduced Nazis and killed them. But then helping people to escape and creating, various kinds of literature and whatnot. These 3 sisters did so much to fight anti-fascism that they need their own movie. Why is there not a movie? That's what I want to know. Because when the time comes that you have to take care of business any way that you can, because the foot soldiers of a Jew-hating, mass-murdering madman are right on your soil, all bets are off.
Innumerable number of lives. Unfortunately, on one occasion, Truss witnessed a mission fail. As she hid in the grass, she watched as the Germans spotted the Jewish children with searchlights and gunned most of them down. While Freddie and Truss were fearless and more than capable, there was one task they refused during their time in the resistance. The commander had asked them to abduct the children of a high-ranking Nazi official. The sisters knew that if the plan did not go right, the children would have to be killed to keep them from sharing the identity of the Dutch resistance members. They refused the task and told their commanders that committing violent acts against children was something they could not and would not do. Pretty young to have a moral compass in the fog of war.
Even Scarface, you know, Al Pacino in Scarface said, "No women, no children." It's one thing to be an assassin when it comes to either, I suppose, organized crime or even wartime resistance. But children, they don't know any better. They're just caught up in this bullshit, no matter what the situation is. Leave the kids out of it. And the fact that they were able to follow that kind of moral compass once more, yeah, they need their own movie.
Hannie Schaft joined the resistance with Freddie and Truss in 1943, and the three girls quickly became inseparable. Schaft had left the University of Amsterdam, where she had been studying to be a lawyer because she had refused to sign a pledge of loyalty to Germany, which was the only way she could remain enrolled. Together, the three were unstoppable.
That sounds a lot like Columbia University and all the other universities that have capitulated to the current regime. That's why it's so important to study history. See the echoes, call it out, make content. You have a phone. You can be a commentator. You can be a journalist. It's up to all of us to do our part. Use these ladies as inspiration if you need to.
Schaft became known as the girl with the red hair because of her bright flaming red hair that made it easy to spot her. Eventually, she dyed her hair black to avoid detection. The Nazis caught Schaft in 1945, just a few weeks before the war ended, and the Netherlands was once again free. She was smuggling an illegal newspaper on her trusty bicycle when the Nazis caught her and tortured her for information, which she did not give. Allegedly, when the German assigned to kill her missed his mark and skimmed her arm, she said, "I'm a better shot," before he shot her once more to finish the job. According to a BBC...
Oh man, what a baller line. She knew she had no choice, so she at least spit in his eye one last time. Ah, baller.
Interview with Freddie's son. When the boy was a child, he showed his mother his school's history textbook. It contained a photograph of her dear friend, along with the story of the fierce bravery of the girl with red hair. Seeing her friend's name go down in history brought tears to Freddie's eyes. Her son said it was always hard for his mother to live with the fact that she and Truss survived the war, and Schaft did not. After World War II, they each dealt with the massive amounts of trauma in their own ways. And while they led different lives, they always remained close. When asked in an interview if they ever talked about the war with each other, Freddie replied, "Yes, always. We never had to say, 'Remember when?' because it was always at the top of our minds." Freddie got married and had 3 children. When Truss formed the Hannie Schaft Foundation, Freddie served on the board. Although World War II had ended, Freddie's son Remy said, the war actually lasted 80 years for Freddie. She never stopped talking about her experiences and sharing them with those in her life. Truss got married and had 4 children. She named her first child Hannie, after her friend and fellow resistance soldier Hannie Schaft, who was executed by the Nazis. Truss processed her experiences by becoming an artist and creating remarkable sculptures. She also became a public speaker who lectured on World War II and anti-Semitism. She published a book in 1982 about her experiences titled Not Then, Not Now, Not Ever. Both Freddie and Truss died at the age of 19.
Let that be our slogan against fascism. Not then, not now, not ever. Now, unfortunately, there's there's I'm going to go ahead and call it genocide that's happening right now in Gaza. Doesn't matter what political faction you belong to. People don't deserve to starve, and people don't deserve to get shot when they want to get food. So if you don't agree with that, I'm sorry, but I'm well beyond the idea that you cannot criticize this and be called anti-Semitic because there's nothing right about what's going on. And I think that it's fucked up to be able to hide behind that as an extreme hyperbole just because you don't want criticism. It's the same sort of authoritarian fragility that's been used throughout history anytime that there's any sort of criticism.
Just a few years apart from each other. For a long time, the Overstehen sisters were overlooked for their valiant war efforts because of their association with communism. They finally received recognition in 2014 with the Mobilisate Oorlogsklaus, or Mobilization War Cross, awarded by Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. So what do you think? How would you resist if you were in a similar circumstance?
That's a great question. How would you resist if you were in a similar circumstance? We never know what's going to get put upon us day to day. We live in crazy times, I'm telling you. But we're all here for each other, and that's the most important part. If you're not in the Discord, go ahead and come hang out with us in there. We're always having a good time. It's a real place to go if you need a bit of a morale boost, if you know what I mean, because if there's one thing that we do there, we have fun. Man, I appreciate everybody hanging out today with me, going over some facts. Some facts that debunk all of those lies that are out there, while at the same time, go ahead and paying tribute to some real heroes. You've been watching ViperTV. Until tomorrow, friends. Later, skaters.
Go to skipfranzjr.net for podcasts.
Record player that, I could just spin records all the time.
Run into the bathroom and I'm covered in blood. Like I had put my tooth through my bottom lip.
For music. For gaming and pro-liberty game rants. That's skipfranzjr.net.